So now we're going to learn about the border radius property, property. And remember the terminology that we're using here, and I'm going over this just so it gets ingrained in your mind. And repetition is really one of the keys for retention. And so we have our rule set, which has a selector or selectors, and then the declaration block, and then the declarations. And the declarations have properties and values. So we're learning about the border radius property just to connect all that. Otherwise, it's like these terms that people just memorize. But these are properties that we actually use in declarations, which belong in a declaration block, which is part of a rule set. And the rule set starts out with the CSS selector or selectors. And we've been talking about element selectors, but increasingly we've been talking about a class selector. So just the different terms and the different tools we're learning. So we're going to learn about border radius, and this is what you can do with border radius. Check out that puppy in the top left corner, those divs. I rounded all of those corners, and I put a puppy in the background, and I centered that puppy, and I said be right there, puppy. And so is that kind of design which allows you to do something like this. That's what we used on this page right here. Right, we did a little container for an image, and then we just did a border radius, and we made that a circular image. So really cool, and we could change that. So that's what we're going to learn. Let's take a look and see how we do it. And by the way, even though after I said all that stuff about I was going to show you the GitHub stuff and the commit, I ended up not doing it because I forgot. So that's why it's helpful to have students in the classroom to actually say, hey, show me again. I'll try to remember and show it to you at the end of this video. Okay, so here we go. I've copied 12. Folder 12 where we did the border stuff, and I put it into a new directory, all of the same code, so we're starting out right where we left off in the last video. I put it into the same directory, and I called it 13 border radius, so that's where this code is. All right, and right now, without anything else, this is what the website looks like. So there's no puppy there, and those are square. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add a border radius. And so I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to just type border dash radius, that's my property. And now this will take a value, which could be pixels or percent. I'm going to go with like 5 pixels and just see what that does. So I'm going to come back over here and watch these divs right here. Let me make those a little bigger actually. So I'll make them 400 by 400. All right, cool. Let's refresh. And now notice those divs have a little bit of a round right there on their corner. So here is without border radius, completely square. And then here is with border radius 5 pixels, and it's rounding that border, the radius of the border, the corner. And so I could add a little bit more to that. Let me do 15, and then come back over here and refresh. And so there's 15, and let me do 25. Come back here and refresh. There's 25. Let me do 35. Come back here and refresh. Cool. Let me do 45. Come back here and refresh. So that's one way I could do border radius. Another way is I could use the percent sign. So 45%, what does that look like? A lot more circular. Or I could do 100%. Totally circular. So I've got a totally circular div right there. Now what if I want to get an image into the background of that div? I'll show you how to do that in a second. First though, I'm going to drop the size of these just to 200. And that way we could see the divs down below. Cool. And now those puppies down there, let's try with image. Let's duplicate that code and then move it down here. And so now we have border radius on all of our image files. Let's see what that does. So there's border radius on those images. Kind of a different effect, but kind of cool. I like it. And not quite circular. We could play with that. We could play with the different settings to see what different sizes we get. But right now we're just going to leave that. I want to move back up to the div, and I want to show you how to put an image there. So I'm going to teach you a few more CSS properties. And so one of them is background image. So I'm going to do a background, and you can just type background and then start looking at what comes up. So there's background image. And if you wanted to learn about the background property, you would go to background MDN on Google and then just read about the background property, right? Like what does it say? So background image, and the image I want, I need to specify the URL, so that's the value I'm going to set. And the URL, I'm going to go up a level, and then I'm going to go into the 000 image folder because I went from here up a level to here. Now I'm going to go into that folder right there. And then once inside that folder, I'm going to choose the pup. Now I'm going to come back here and refresh, and the puppy's there. How cool is that? So a couple more properties that I could set right there just to make sure that that puppy looks good in that area is I could do background and size, and then do cover. And the last one I could, let's just see what that does, how that changes things. So it didn't change anything at all. It's covering fine. And I could also do background repeat, no repeat. So those can be helpful. Because if we had a really big image or a really small image, you could see this with the 100 size, right? If I have 100, well, the puppy's right there in the middle. But if I did not have cover and no repeat, right, that's what it looks like. You know, the puppy's eye, which is a different effect, right? But with cover, then cool. The puppy's covering that, filling it in. And with no repeat, if I had a really big one, so let's just make this 1,000. And no repeat. Oh, it totally fills it in because I had cover. All right, so that works. But if I didn't have cover, let's see what would happen. Repeating puppy. And then I could take that, and there we go. Kind of weird just playing with it. I did cover and took it out, and it just gave me that corner. So background cover, no repeat, fills in it all the way, but we have pixelization. So I'm going to leave it at 100. And that's the way you do your HTML, your CSS. And that's why it's really helpful to have live preview and 2 screens. So as you develop, you could see what's happening. All right, so a little bit of a review. So we learned border radius in this video. And you could set it to a % or a pixel. And these are called units of measure. So I could change that back to pixel and then just refresh and it looks the same, right? Or I could do 10 pixels and get a different image, right? So those are units of measurement, pixels or percentage. So border radius will take as a value pixel or percentage or other units of measurement. And then we could set a background image by specifying the URL. And we could say background size cover. This image should cover the background. And we don't want the image to repeat. So those are some common background settings that you set when working with a background image. So the last thing I want to do is show you the GitHub stuff. And I'm going to go back over to my terminal and then just do a git status. And you can see everything that's changed. So I'll do a git add -- all and then git commit -m adds 012 and 013 border and border radius examples, and then a git push. And that pushes it all up to GitHub. And I could come verify that over here on GitHub that 11, 12, and 13 are all there. All right, that's border radius.